You had to attend premieres, and as we had no clothes to wear, which would make the newspapers, because you obviously had to turn up at the premiere looking very glamorous. They're not like they are today. If you have a film premiere, you can wear any old thing. This was good because, you know, it added excitement and glamour to the business. So what used to happen was that we would be given or loaned evening dresses to wear to premieres, which had been worn by, say, Margaret Lockwood or Greta Gint or Phyllis Calvert in all their films, because they were the big stars. And depending on your measurements, you'd be loaned out these fabulous dresses, a bit like Cinderella going to the ball. The starlets were invited, they were made to go along to these parties and mingle with all these people in the hope, we were told, that one of these directors might sort of see something fantastic in one of us or be casting a film or whatever. I personally have my own ideas about those parties, but you see, as I was only 15, and I'd been more or less discovered in the first place by a film producer called Sidney Box, who was at Gainsborough Films. He had sent a memo, because I was very advanced for my years, as probably you've seen in various photographs of me. I mean, I looked much older, but I was only 15, and he sent a memo around to everybody in the rank organisation which said, keep off underage. So I never went through this awful business of casting couch or men making passes or anything like that, because I was under 16 and everyone was terrified. And of course they all remembered Sidney Box's memo.
Generally speaking, it was always luck rather than careful planning that provided a break for any of the charm school starlets.
Come on!
Take, for example, the case of Peggy Evans. The role of Dirk Bogart's girlfriend in The Blue Lamp was written initially for Diana Dors.
It was then decided by the director, Basil Dearden, that he didn't want the girl to look, sound and be like me. Despite the fact her name was Diana, he wanted more of a waif. And so Peggy Evans, who was very slim and had this very thin little face and looked as though she'd been starved all her life, you know, she got the part. And it was really, I think, the only big film role that Peggy ever did. I remember I was 18 years old and I was once again called to Olive Dodds' office. Once again I thought, the moment has come, it's all going to be wonderful. And I walked in and she told me very gently that they were dropping my contract and it wasn't just me, you know. And I remember walking down Regent Street and thinking, what's going to happen to me now? Because since I was 15, I'd had this weekly paycheck coming in. And suddenly, for the first time in my young life, I realized that money was really very important. It wasn't just going to the studios and playing Let's Pretend.
In the second coming of the charm school, the starlets no longer had to attend an actual school, though individual tuition was available to them. Nor at premieres were they now obliged to wear Margaret Lockwood's hand-me-downs. Instead, expensive dresses were specially designed for them. But one thing certainly hadn't changed. The young contract artists were still used primarily for publicity purposes and hardly at all for filmmaking. On the other hand, personal appearances had become rather more glamorous affairs, not so much a case of judging baby shows in Rotherham, but more a matter of helping to sell Rank and its products in Europe.
And it was at that time that John Davis decided he was going to try and spread the Rank organisation and its artists and make them more internationally known. So he decided that he was going to insist that we all attend. We didn't insist, it wasn't the same then as it had been back in the 40s, but you were asked if you would attend these film festivals, and it was great. I mean, there was no problem about not going. I mean, because it was a marvellous experience, all expenses paid for. And that's where, of course, I did my famous mink bikini trip in Venice, you know, on the gondola with Theo Cowan.
And we did it quite early in the morning, and we had one gondola with a photographer and one gondola with Dors. And I was in the Dors gondola because we were trying to set the picture up. And the photographer said, the light's just perfect, you know. Let's do it now. Well, there was no way I could get out of the gondola. And so the only thing I could do was lie along the bottom of the thing so that none of me showed. And she had one leg on the back of my neck. And the pictures which you see of her on the lagoon are actually, you know, really by my kind permission of me trying to survive in the bowels of the canoe, the gondola rather.
In all fairness to them, they wanted to project an air of seriousness amongst their young contract players. And by calling it the Company of Youth and starting it off as they did, that was fine. But because the press had dubbed it the Charm School and everything about it was just ridiculed. And of course, once you're held up to ridicule, it's very difficult to get out of that.